Good evening, and I'm welcoming you all to the Committee of the Whole meeting. This is the Duluth Public Schools Monthly Community of the Whole meeting. It is October 1st. It is 5:17, and we're delighted to have our presenters here, our community, to the community that is watching us on YouTube. Again, this is the Committee of the Whole. This is where the school board takes no action, so there will be no voting done at our Committee of the Whole, but we hear presentations. So this is an important meeting. It's a meeting we love to have our community present. We love that our community would watch it in its entirety on our YouTube channel, because this is where information, curriculum, policies, great things going on in our district, from our most littlest to our most adult basic ed programs. So we're excited to be here tonight. And I'll turn it over to Member Sadowski, who's our clerk, and she'll take roll.
Member Banks.
Here.
Member Dirk Eater.
Present.
Member Loeffler Kemp.
Here.
Member Lofeld.
Here.
Member Mike Sal.
Here.
I am here. Member Williams.
Here.
Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Present.
Deputy Clerk Zunich. Board Secretary Paquette. She's here. Executive Assistant Shannon Brown. And our student school board representatives are excused.
Thank you. And again, tonight, we've had our agenda in front of us. We have 3 presentations tonight that will be informative and exciting and informational, and we're really glad you're here. So we have a presentation from our READ Act and the Duluth letters, and that will be an update. We have presentations from our Head Start. Yep, you can come on up. And we also have a budget update from Director Finance Zunich. So that's our agenda for tonight, and I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds. Thank you for gathering all of this information for us.
Thank you, Chair Lofo, and good evening, board and community and visitors. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to quickly turn it over to our Assistant Director of Special Education, Laura Thurston, as well as our Reading and Language Arts Coordinator, Jackie Otway. And I want to give everyone an opportunity to meet Jackie. Jackie joined us recently, and Laura, I don't want to take your thunder. Were you going to introduce Jackie? I'm going to turn it over to you then, Laura. There you go.
Good evening and thank you. We are very, is the volume okay? I would pull it even further. Sure. We're very excited to be here this evening. I have to give you fair warning. I get rather passionate about this, and so I may start talking fast, or but feel free to stop me, slow me down. I'm happy to do that. We're here tonight for 2 purposes. We're going to give you an update on the implementation of the READ Act, and then we're going to also give you some updates on the READ Act, what we call READ Act 2, that was enacted this summer. So we'll get started. The READ Act, if you may recall, do you want me to stop or? Okay. Is this going on our time?
How about this? While they're fixing the technology, Laura, you want to go ahead and just tell us a little bit about the individual next to you?
Yes. So Jackie Otway, and you'll see it in the presentation here, Jackie Otway is hired on, started with us pretty quickly in August, and she is filling a position in our district that was required as a part of the READ Act, the literacy lead in our district. She is an ELA coordinator, and she will be responsible for the implementation of the Literacy Act and providing literacy support to our schools, our teachers, and our administrators. I see the presentation's ready, so I'll continue. You may recall that the READ Act came into place July 1st, 2023, And the READ Act stands for Reading to Ensure Academic Development. It replaces the Read Well by Third Grade Act that was previously in place. The previous READ Act or Read Well Act, the goal was that all students would be reading at grade level by third grade. If you'll look at the goal for the Minnesota READ Act that's replaced it, it's quite a daunting goal because it says that every Minnesota child will read at or above grade level every year, beginning in kindergarten. That's no small task. And additionally, that we will support multilingual and special education students to achieve their individualized reading goals. So it took, I will say it took the original READ Act or Read Well Act and kind of put it on steroids and really put us on a fast pace to ensure that every student is reading. And it has a couple of requirements, or 4 requirements. There's an approved MDE universal screener that the district must select. The district must select an approved curricular resources approved by MDE. MDE also approves some professional development options, and districts have to choose from those. And the district, the READ Act also required that every district hire a district reading specialist or a literacy lead. It's called several things, and that is Jackie in our district. Under professional development, MDE had 3 different options that a district could select. They could select letters, which was the language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, which has a passing required score of 80% upon completion. The district could also select Carry-All, which is advancing language and literacy, and it has a passing score upon completion of 80%. Or the district could select CORE, which stands for Online Language and Literacy Academy, and they have a passing score upon completion of 85%. There's a group of, they broke it into phases as far as training, and this is the requirement for phase 1 of the training. We'll get into those participants in just a minute. What I want to also acknowledge is that there was a couple of years ago a grant that the state put out. I want to say it was a $2 million grant, that teachers that wanted to access letters training could do so through this grant. And Duluth had a number of teachers that went through that training at that time. And so when the READ Act came on board, we already had a number of teachers in our district who had this training. We were able then to ask those teachers if they would be willing to be facilitators for us in anticipation of training our district in letters. So we were already ahead of the curve, I will say, in getting ready for training our teachers. As far as the approved professional development, the state broke it down into phases. Phase 1 educators, and you'll see those there, I highlighted them. There's the pre-K group, and that requires that all pre-K classroom teachers, early childhood, receive training. It's a reduced training. There's only one curriculum that's approved for the early childhood, and it happens to be by letters. So it's the early childhood letters training. It is not as robust or lengthy. It is robust. It is not as lengthy as this training we have for the rest of the teachers. We have actually a group of new hire early childhood teachers that are upstairs training tonight, getting their first section of the training. You'll see that all K through 3 classroom teachers are required as part of phase 1, as are reading intervention teachers, K-12, pre-K through 12 special ed teachers that work with reading, which is all of our teachers for the most part, curriculum directors, and then the last highlighted there are employees who select literacy instructional materials for a district. I'd like to draw your attention to pre-K through 5 curriculum directors and pre-K through 5 employees who select literacy instructional materials, and let you know that there's a group of about 17, it's kind of grown, it may be up to 19 now, of Duluth leaders that are in that training. We call them the admin cohort, and we are taking that training monthly, along with, in a cohort model. We are, maybe, I think Sarah said we're not quite halfway through the training yet, but we are on track with the teachers. So you have a group of adults, or not adults, you have a group of leaders in this district that are also training. I think there's 4 elementary principals in that group right now. Then phase 2, you'll see these folks have to complete their training by July of 2027, and that involves what I call everybody else in the district. With regard to the pre-K through 5 instructional support staff, those are our paraprofessionals. And originally they were included in the phase 1 training, but because there was some lack of clarity around whether or not core, carry-all, or letters was appropriate for that staff, they've pulled that group out, and they're going to give us direction, and Jack, you'll speak to that in a minute. They're going to give us direction on what is an appropriate curriculum and training for that group of folks this fall. Then, like I said, our district was well on its way to implementation of the READ Act because approved screeners, we were already using the FastBridge screener, and that is one of the approved models, so there was no impact as far as big change to our staff. We selected letters as our professional development training, and under evidence-based curriculum, Haggerty and UFly were already in the use in the district, and we added functional morphonics and morphology this fall. So our teachers are receiving that training this fall. So we were really in good shape and good stead to enact the requirements of the READ Act.
Can I just ask a quick question on that page? Just when you say phase 2 educators and it's completing it by 2027, when are we starting? When do these teachers begin their training, or are they already?
You want to?
I was in a recent webinar with MDE, and they said that registration for phase 2 will open up in February, but they haven't given us specific guidance as to approved programming yet. They did say that information will come out this fall. I'm assuming it will be later this fall, probably closer to early winter, but they are going to clarify that before the new year, and we'll start getting phase 2 registered in February.
Just another quick follow-up on page 8. You mentioned that we have been using FLE and Haggerty. How long had we been using that in the district? UFLA.
UFly started last year. Haggerty, I believe, has been in the district longer than that. Is that correct, Brendan? Yeah, started during COVID, Dale says.
Great, thank you.
So how did Duluth implement the requirements for the training? We offered access to the letters training in district. We have 2 distinguished guests this evening, and I'm going to ask them to stand so that you can see them, meet them. Jeff and Colleen are 2 of 7 of our letters trainers, and our letters trainers are rock stars. I cannot praise them, thank them, say enough about them. They are putting in countless hours. The lift on this phase 1 training is immense. And then when you factor in bringing on all the new hires, so we have to go back and start that training over, the pressure on these folks, the time commitment on these folks is large. And so I just want to lift them up to you and let you know they're doing an outstanding job of delivering this training for our district. And you'll see the pacing that we have and how quickly we're going to be able to get our folks trained to complete phase 1, and it's because of the commitment of our trainers. So Jeff and Colleen this evening.
We thank you. So if our, we have the Duluth trainers and we see Colleen and Jeff in front of us, are they doing the training as a TOSA or a teacher on special assignment, or are you doing the job you usually do for us on top of then taking on the training? And I see they're nodding, so they're doing their, are you elementary teachers? Okay. And then, okay. And so the training obviously is after school or weekends or evenings, and
All
you're
of the
doing
above.
all of them. Okay.
And in fact, I will acknowledge that if you had trouble finding a parking space this evening, it's because we have 3 letters trainings going on right now. We have a group up in the cafeteria, we have a group up in one of the boardrooms, and then we have a teacher right outside, right behind you, Ms. Sadowski, doing virtual training. She's training 40-plus people virtually this evening. So three trainings just this very evening going on.
Member Laflakamp.
Thank you, and thank you, Colleen and Jeffrey. Are all of the other folks reading interventionalists at an elementary school too, that are trainers?
So Colleen and Jeff are. Karen is an elementary school teacher. Kelsey is a reading interventionist, I believe, for the district. Sarah Burris, she's now Arlt, is a supervisor for special ed. And Jennifer is a elementary teacher. Mhm. And Anna Schneider was an elementary teacher. She had a baby and she's a mom, but she comes in to help with the training now.
Thank you.
Now,
Member Banks?
what I didn't mention here is we also have an early childhood training going on, and that's in collaboration with our Head Start team, Sherry Williams Group. They have 2 facilitators. Special ed will have 2 facilitators, and between both teams for early childhood, we'll be able to keep the training going for our early childhood team.
Member
So,
Banks?
quick question. I'm looking at the programs that you use. Are you aware of a program called Flowcabulary? Would there ever be any opportunity for that to be utilized in the district? Because it is culturally specific to African-American children, and I think it might be something to check out to get more information. In my investigation of that program, it seems very successful.
So what you see up there are the options that were approved by MDE that districts had to select from. I remember that we've had some conversations about flow vocabulary. It's on Brenda and Dale and Sally's radar and Jen's radar. They might wish to speak to it more. Sally's currently looking into that right now. Okay. So it would be a supplementary curriculum that we could use. But we had to use what was approved by MDE, and that's what you see there. Absolutely.
Thanks.
Member
Thank you.
Derek Eater?
I was going to comment on the same thing if I could, but I just want to say thanks for the suggestion, and we're doing quite a bit of work related to ensuring that we are viewing our instructional leadership through a culturally responsive lens. The work we did over the past few years with the Center for Educational Leadership, but I think, and investments in our library and diversifying resources there. But I think it's always important, as you've noted, to make sure that we are thinking about how are we best serving and engaging and making sure that things are culturally relevant for our historically underserved students. So thank you for bringing that up.
Member Derek Eater?
Thank you for the presentation today. Excuse me, and thank you for our trainers. I know you're taking this on top of a very rigorous schedule already, so we appreciate it. My question is thinking about how this new letters training and these how this new Letters and Read Act is going to affect children who are dyslexic and dysgraphic. We know my older son came up previously, he's a 10th grader now, so when he was going through reading, it was very sight word, and it just looked very different, and he didn't respond at all to that sort of training, so we had to go outside and get the specialized training for Keegan. I also know that in order to get that documentation, in order to get that diagnosis of dyslexia, you have to go through many different steps. Are there avenues and are there way in this new READ Act that it helps reach those students who are dyslexic? As we know, there's somewhere between 5 and 10% of students are dyslexic, so it's somewhere between 400 and 800 of our kids here in Duluth. So is this new way that they're going about reading, are there some ways to reach those kids that are challenged?
Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of ways, what we're doing with letters and the science of reading is what is old is new again. And we're kind of going back to that core way of learning to read, which is all thoroughly based in science and phonics and all of those important skills that we all had when we were kids in school. The state does recognize that we have missed kids with dyslexia in the past. So they have written it into the READ Act that students after 4th grade who are identified as not meeting their grade level achievements, they should be monitored and tested for dyslexia along with parent support on that. So that is part of the new legislation, is to make sure we are testing and monitoring for dyslexia throughout the student's career.
Thank you, that's wonderful news to hear, so I appreciate that.
So I'm going to give you a brief overview of some letters training. So this is the science of letters. What you see on the screen or before you on your printout is what we call Scarborough's rope. And all of these, there are 7 different strands to the rope, and this is just a quick teaser, but there are 7 different strands to the rope. And you have the lower component, which is the skills required for word recognition, and you'll see that that's phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. So that's in the first part of our training in letters that we're going through now, is really learning about those 3 strands. And once the students and once the teachers are able to teach in those 3 strands, then we can develop, the training tells us that we will be on our way to developing skilled readers. The upper strands, the upper 4 strands, are part of the language comprehension components of education or teaching and training. It requires background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge. And these 7 strands make up Scarborough's rope, and students that are proficient in all 7 areas we know are going to be skilled readers. So letters, you'll see, addresses all 7 strands. The word recognition strands we're going through right now, that's the volume 1, and we will be complete with that by this fall. We'll have those 4 strands covered. And then next spring, our work will lead us into volume 2, the upper part of the rope with letters, language comprehension. Letters is 160 hours. It's a very rigorous training, and it's often compared to graduate level credit work, which was one reason why the legislature wasn't sure that it was appropriate for our paraprofessional staff, and they pulled them out of the training. We do this through cohorts of 40 to 50 teachers. We try to go not too far over 40. We have 2 trainers per session, and we are training every month in these trainers. Okay, that was a brief teaser for letters training right there. So our district offered 3 offerings, 3 ways to obtain this training. And the data I've given you was from the initial offering. We initially had 298 responses from our phase 1 educators. 227 of them chose our Duluth option 1, 85 chose our Duluth option 2, 3 decided they would take it not through Duluth, but they would go through the state instead. Side note, the 3 that selected the state-led training have yet to start their training because the state hasn't been able to get the entire state up and running. So, say that to say I'm very appreciative and thankful that we were able to get this going for our teachers because we will be in good shape.
Superintendent Magus?
Yes.
No, I was just going to say how thankful I am for the trainers and everybody who's been involved, but also if you reflect on this many people doing 4 full weeks of training to prepare for better teaching our kids, that's a great investment in the foundation of literacy for our students.
Absolutely. To give you a little more information, our option 1, which was our Duluth option 1, these are folks that are taking the training after hours. Primarily, they're taking it and for a lane change. They're choosing it to take it at this time in this offering because they eventually will qualify for a lane change. Again, it's offered during non-contract. As I said, there's a group upstairs doing it now. Option 2, which is a Duluth option, these folks were given 2 choices. They could take it during contract time, and we provide their sub, or they can take it non-contract in the evening, and if they don't need the lane change, then we provide them with pro rata reimbursement. We also provide in option 2 folks a substitute, 1 day of substitute, so that they can do their planning, their reading, their asynchronous training in preparation for the synchronous 3-hour training. So the district, I feel, is very generous in what they've offered teachers to get this training. Our non-contract training hours, like I said, they can pursue a lane change or reimbursement. Now, with the new year, we also had to start up a new hire group. So they were given the option of doing non-contract training. They will get it for pro rata compensation, or they can also pursue the lane change. And then we also provide them with a substitute. If they're not taking the lane change, if they're taking the pro rata, they get the substitute during the day so that they can do their preparation. I mentioned early childhood. They started their training in June, and the early childhood group on June 6th did 2 sections. They have 4 sections. Their training is a little less comprehensive or less extensive maybe. They did 2 units of the 4 on June 6th, and they will complete their final 2 units in November. So by December, all of our early childhood teachers will have gone through the training. That will be one group done. Tonight, there is a first round of early childhood new hire training. They're getting it tonight. They'll get another section in October, and then everybody will do it in November. Sherry's got a team member upstairs training those folks right now. I wanted to draw your attention to para-training. We, in preparation and out of appreciation and really taking advantage of the extra para time that's been given to us in training, we did some training with our paras in literacy, August 26th and 27th. So August 26th, Sarah Arlt is one of our trainers, and she did a 3-hour training section for our paras on literacy, and she did an overview of how kids learn to read, the science of reading, and some things that they can do in the classroom to assist students. Then we came back on the 27th, and we did a training in UFly, and she taught our para assistants, our teaching assistants, how to teach a UFly lesson so that they can truly be better equipped to be instructional aides in the classroom. I don't know what the state is ultimately going to require of paras. I think Jackie has some inclination of that. I am just thankful that we had this opportunity because I really feel like we are equipping our para educators to be more instructional assistants in our classroom. So I
Member
wanted to draw your
Loeffler-Kemp?
attention to that. Sorry.
Just one quick question. Great, I'm really glad to hear about the para training. Was there anything in the state statute or state law that required paras to receive anything? Did you say that? Did I miss
Yes,
that?
they were part of the phase 1 initially. It's on one of your slides in the first. They were part of the phase 1, but because the options that the state provided with core, carry-all, and letters were more of a graduate level, college level training.
you
They weren't
mentioned
sure,
that,
they
yeah.
weren't convinced it was appropriate for our paraeducators, so they pulled them out of that phase 1, and they'll be part of, Jackie's going to talk about what's coming for them, what we know right now.
Okay, I appreciated that earlier comment. I did kind of connect it with paras, but thank you.
Regardless of what the state ultimately decides, I am so appreciative of the training that we've been able to do with our paras and equipping them to be better, to be stronger instructional aides for us in the classroom. And the feedback we got from the para group was one of appreciation. And then finally, just an update on where we are right now. We are going to celebrate in early December that all of our early childhood teachers, both Head Start and early childhood special ed, will be trained. By next May, we will throw a party because 300 of our educators will be complete, and option 2 will complete by next December, so another celebration at that time. And then the new hires that started this year, they will be done by the spring of 2026. Now, we know that we're going to have to, and you'll still to train, every year we're going to have to train our new hires. But if you think about how many folks that is in our district that will be trained and equipped, as Mr. Magus indicated, it's a lot. So still to train phase 2, which Jackie's going to talk about, and our instructional paraprofessionals.
So I'll just give you guys a bit of an update on the READ Act. We've been calling it READ Act 2.0. The initial legislation passed in 2023, and then they passed some updates in July of this year. So that has caused us to make some adjustments to how we're approaching literacy. One thing that did come with the new legislation is a limited compensation to help pay for our teachers' literacy training. So LETRS is paid for through the READ Act and the funding that came from that. This is a one-time offering, so this does need to also cover our phase 2 teachers who won't be starting till next year. There is no guarantee that the legislature will provide additional funding for phase 2. We are hoping they will, but there's no word on that yet. We will be getting, like I said earlier, our training options for our phase 2 educators later this fall. In the past, we were required to do diagnostic assessments on students' reading skills in grades K through 3 2 times per year. With the new legislation, that switches to 3 times per year. So now we'll test students in the first 6 weeks and the last 6 weeks, and then there's a window in the winter, just to give us an ability to track students' progress and make sure we're meeting their needs in the classroom. As I said earlier, students in grade 4 through 12 who are not meeting their literacy goal will be screened for dyslexia and monitored going forward, so we can make sure we are catching kids before it's too late. By 2026, anyone who is providing Tier 2 reading instruction, so those would be our interventionists, they must be supervised by a licensed teacher if they aren't one already, or it's like a paraprofessional perhaps, who has completed letters. So all of the work that Laura's been doing to get our 300-plus staff members trained in Phase 1 is going to be essential going forward to making sure we're compliant with the legislation. We will be getting some approved intervention models for grades 4 through 12 this fall. And then finally, secondary curriculum will not receive the same type of review that elementary curriculum did. The state has been pretty rigid on what is and is not approved for reimbursement. They want to make sure everything is very evidence-based, rooted in the science of reading. So really, there's only 3 to 5 curriculums that we could purchase for elementary literacy that would be partially reimbursed by the state. They will not be doing that for the secondary level. They said that's too broad. There are too many diverse needs in that age group between AP classes, remedial classes, just the vastness of general education. But they will be instead providing guidance on literacy strategies and explicit and systemic lessons based in the core science of reading strategies. So still waiting for guidance on that. Every time I log into an MDE webinar, everybody is on bated breath, waiting for answers. As soon as we have them, we will make sure we share those out with our school communities.
Thank you. And I would be remiss not to also thank Laura Thurston for all of her hard work. She took on this as a project, something that has been a passion for her, and she jumped right into it last year, and we really, really appreciate all of her efforts for getting us this far. And this is a really exciting time because, as you all know, we have challenges in the district. We have many students who are proficient in reading, but we have many who are not, especially our students who are marginalized. And so we're really excited that the state has really made such a significant investment, really have come along and identified key resources that they believe will improve outcomes. And as a district, we have already started the journey of make sure our teachers receive the training that they need. We're going to continue to work with them. We're aligning our professional development days to also focus on literacy and improving outcomes. And so just know that it's a big investment of time and energy and staff who are here to train our teachers and to work with our principals to build their capacity to be instructional leaders. This is an exciting time that will allow us to really focus on something truly, truly foundational and needed within our district. So I always say if we can get all of our students, especially starting early, focused on reading and becoming strong readers, they'll be able to do math and science and other subjects as well. So Superintendent Maggis, and then I'll come around.
I would just like to reiterate my thanks as well to the whole team and to you, Laura, specifically, and also to, right behind you, Brenda Sparts, who's done a lot as well. Others from the curriculum team, of course, but really been spearheaded by the curriculum department, and just want to say thank you, as well as to you, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, because we did have some choice. We could have taken a lesser path, an easier path with much less training. But in talking with some of our trainers upstairs before this began, there are people who have come from other districts who have had other training, and when they compare the two, they said that this by far blows away the other training, and this is much, much more intensive and much higher quality. So really appreciate that investment and that leadership. And I know that sometimes people have asked about what will implementation look like and how are we going to support that, and I know that we've got planning underway for that as well. Member
Sadowski, and then Member Meixel.
I was just going to say how impressed I am with just how this whole thing has been rolled out. It's been really interesting hearing about it over the last year and a half or so. And I have talked to other people who maybe who are teachers in other districts. And just after talking to them and hearing, we're ahead of the game here on this training. And it's astounding how many of our teachers have been trained already, and thank you to the trainers for going above and beyond and doing that. I'm really excited to see the outcomes for our students over the next 10 years.
Member Meixel?
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, just the investment that we're putting into our students, knowing that we're going to hopefully be reaping those rewards. Is anyone able to provide just a bit of a cost analysis or how we're funding this right now and where we need to make up, or if there's things that we as a school board should be doing to advocate for that?
I'll speak to it briefly, and then Simone may want to pitch in. There was always an allotment from the state for literacy that the district was using, and Simone can maybe add some clarity. But as we started initially, before the state even determined how they were going to roll it out or when they were going to roll it out, the district had already made an investment in purchasing all the materials and the licenses, and that was to the tune of $136,000, I believe, that the district invested. Probably came out of, I'm going to say it came out of that literacy, because that's what we coded it to. And that also covers the cost of our trainers. And then when the READ Act 2 that Jackie spoke to came in, it provided an additional $300,000, roughly, some change in that. But, you know, while that looks like that's going to be great for us, and it is great for us, we still have to be very mindful of the amount of training we have ahead of us and the costs that we'll carry with that. And if that is a one-time offering, then we know that next year and the year after, we're going to have to train early childhood teachers again, and we're going to have to train new staff that are coming on. So we want to be mindful with that. Did I cover it?
Yes, excuse me, yes, you did. And I'll be honest, MDE is still working through some of the calculations, and we will get the money through metered ideas payments. But we did get literacy incentive aid to the tune of roughly $370,000. And then we also received READ Act money, $440,000. What happened is the literacy incentive aid was at $470, and then now that the READ Act came in, they reduced literacy incentive by $100,000, but gave us $440 for the READ Act money. Again, it'll come through our ideas payments, which are the payments we get from the state, our state aid, that's twice a month. And there's still work being done, as you can both attest to, that they're working through some of the process there.
And I would venture to guess, and then I'll come to Chair Lofo, that there's other costs that have been associated with the training that we just don't have clearly identified. We spend a significant amount of money on professional development. We spend ESSER dollars to make additional purchases of materials and resources. So there's been a significant amount of resources, funding resources that is, to get ready for not only the READ Act, but also other trainings that is related to our literacy programming.
And
Chair
before
Lawler.
you, if you don't mind, if I could comment on this thread. When we think about funding and the financial needs, I would say that of the comments and of the topics that were discussed at the recent MASA fall conference that we're at, which is the school superintendent's conference, I would say this was, if not the top item, one of the top three items as far as making sure that we have funding for the READ Act. And also with some of the legislative work being done, making sure that information is clear, that it's presented, and that we're funding those, part two aspects. I think that that's something that we really need to focus on. And finally, I'd say when it comes to where there's greatest return on investment of funds, investment in early childhood is really throughout the country and throughout many decades of educational research. Investing in early childhood and investing in literacy is one of the best investments you can make with your dollars. So tonight's two topics of early childhood and literacy are very important.
Chair Lofo?
So two questions, and I like the SAIL. We've got the acronym SAIL, and we've got L in there with literacy, and I know we've heard time and time again at the board table that our administration is really, that's one of their number one goals and themes for this year. and beyond. And so I did note, to ask legislatively for more funding for the Phase 2. And so when we meet with our local Duluth, we can share our story, but then also bring our advocacy to the Capitol too, as well as, they're excited about it. It's never an easy ask to ask legislators to donate more, to give that money in that area, but I'm hoping that they don't see the last 2 sessions where they did give us money like that, then that's enough. So we have to keep doing that. But my 2 questions is, and Superintendent Magus alluded to this with the word implementation, and then I went, oh, okay. So right now, we have teachers trained in letters. Are they using letters within their classroom? Okay, I see some nods. And even when ours that are in the training right now, are they implementing some of the things they're learning within their classrooms? Okay, I like hearing that, but then it's kind of like, okay, then hurry up, because we all have to be there. Because I want my grandson in the class that, has this kind of proven, what's old is new again, reading. So
Well, I can provide some clarification if you like. Letters is not a curriculum, it's a system of teaching, right? And so what we're asking teachers to invest in is to change their practice, which is why the compensation piece is so important, and making sure that they're investing all of their own time in this and showing our appreciation in what they're investing in our district and our students. I think we all see every year in the spring the alarmist headlines of kids can't read. And we are actively ahead of the curve in making sure that teachers are the most prepared to actively implement it as they're learning it in their classrooms. And that's one thing we really like about letters, is they have the opportunity to practice it. Because we have this lengthy learning period, they can take what they're learning after each unit and test it out in their classroom and bring it back to a session a month later and discuss that with their peers.
my last question would be then, there's allusions to this testing at different times. When does that happen?
It's happening right now, actually.
Oh.
So we have K through 3 students doing FastBridge testing. And so they run through that with a teacher or an interventionist, and then the teacher can analyze those results and actively see which standards kids are struggling with, which standards they're excelling with, and we can plan instruction around that. We can plan an intervention around that as well. And then instead of waiting until springtime to check in with them again, we can use the formative and summatives we already have in the classrooms, and then kind of double check it against another FastBridge assessment in the winter time. It's really to help us keep kids and teachers on track and using our time as effectively as possible.
I guess I thought a little bit about are there state tests that the state wants now that we've got letters and they're funding it, and when do those tests start for reporting to MDE?
I believe the only one we need to report to MDE at this time would be MCAs. I think all the FastBridge testing stays within the district. That's more for our purposes here.
Well, I really appreciate, Brenda's going to add something.
Although this isn't read well after grade still, we still have to in June report our progress in reading for K1, 2, 3 students. So we will have to send a literacy plan to MDE and also report that data. Although they don't call it the read well by third grade anymore, we'll still have to do that reporting too.
Well, I really appreciate it, and it's really nice to hear Jackie's voice and your explanations, and I really appreciate it. I think we're in great hands with our leaders and our instructional leaders, and you have a lot of, comfortable, easy language to share with us, so you know that you're right on top of this training and this style. Obviously, I'm not, even though I was an English teacher for my career.
Member Sadowski?
I think Member Lafleur-Kemp had hers on first. Do you want to go first?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know.
Now I have like 3 points based on since I turned my light on, but one is I just want to really second what Member Sadowski said about it's been really impressive, the rollout on this in the last year and a half. And I'm especially grateful, Laura and Brenda and now Jackie, for the handouts and the background PowerPoints you've been providing us. really appreciative of that. I was thinking, as you were talking, particularly about what we've accomplished already, about how I would put that in an elevator speech as I'm advocating this year, because I know, like last year, our legislators will be very interested in what were our successes so far, what we've accomplished so far, and why we need to continue, which we will strongly advocate for, further funding. And so I just, again, appreciate this. We may need you to help us craft even more simpler talking points as well. But I know that our legislators will be very interested in what we've done up here in Duluth, and we really should share our story, but also continue to advocate for further funding.
I certainly want to encourage you to do that, because as we talk to letters, they are very impressed, appreciative, and impressed with what Duluth has done, because it's a whole group of teachers that they don't have to train, and yet they are comforted by the fact that they have trained our folks, and so our trainers are doing letters facilitated training. So we're not, they've been approved. Jeff and Colleen had to go through extensive training, they have to do continuous training, certain hours, I want to say 8 hours of continuous training every year to be facilitators. So their time commitment to this training is intense. But yes, as we talk to the letters that is doing it, implementing it for many districts across the state, they acknowledge the fact that Duluth is in way better shape than many districts in the state, and unique because we are able to do it within our own district. And then, as Jackie indicated, any communication we have with other districts, they're still waiting to get started, and they're anxious to hear how we're doing and somewhat envious of it. We hired some teachers, I know I'm going over my time, Anthony, but we hired some teachers that came in from other districts, and they said, I'm supposed to be trained in this letters. We started and then we stopped, or I started on the training and I would really like to go at a faster pace. So it really gave me some insight into how other districts are doing it and the benefit it is to our teachers. I will say, just in closing, that I have been very passionate about this work, but I am thankful that Jackie's on board, and she'll be taking it over very soon here. I was committed to getting us started this year, but Jackie will be taking it over very soon. So I'm very thankful for Jackie.
Questions? Member Sadowski and then Member Derek Eater.
This is probably not a question you want because we're still in the middle of training everybody, but you talked about the 8 hours of continuous training every year to be a trainer. Is there a component of continuous training for all of our teachers as a refresher? Does Letters recommend anything about that over the years? Okay, just curious.
And they have to keep their license. That component will be probably continuous training that we'll do.
Thank you. And then just one last quick question. Again, thank you for all your work because literacy is so important. It's really the foundation of everything. And I just had a quick question about when the state said that if we don't reach, or students who don't reach that literacy goal of reading at, grades 4 through 12 need to be screened and monitored for dyslexia. How does what does that look like for the district when we talk about monitoring for dyslexia? And then will the district do the screening for dyslexia? Those are complicated. That's complicated.
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I need to look into it a little more deeply. This year, we are only required to test through K through 3, and we already do provide intervention for students above grade 3, or K and above, who are not meeting their literacy goals. So that's not necessarily a new thing. The implementation of testing for dyslexia, I am not as familiar with, as we haven't, as far as I'm aware, haven't implemented it yet. However, I'm still very new to my role and figuring out all of the details still, so I can look into that if you like.
Oh, hey, Brenda.
I'm going to interrupt you really quick. Can you please come up here and use a microphone because of the recording? Yeah, sorry to jump in.
The Fast Bridge assessment that we use and is approved by the state has always been an approved screener, and what the language that they use, and it was in here too, is for characteristics of dyslexia. As you said earlier, we don't diagnose. We can identify those characteristics and then respond to that. So that Fast Bridge is that screener.
Great, thank you. That's an important clarification. I appreciate that. Thank you, and that answers my question. You don't have to look into anything more. That answers everything perfectly. Yeah, all right, thank you.
Seeing no additional lights, I would like to give Jackie an opportunity to just share a little bit about herself and just some of your background and experience and why Duluth.
I'm Jackie Otway. I come from a teaching background. I have been an English teacher for the last 10 years and love being in the classroom, love making a difference with kids. And I also felt like it was time to maybe spread my wings a little bit further and see if I could provide that same influence to a broader group of people. So when I saw this posted with Duluth Public Schools, I am actually from Grand Rapids. We've been living there the past 10 years, and I'm commuting from Grand Rapids. My family was not quite ready to relocate yet, but the opportunity was too good to pass up. So super excited to have the opportunity to participate at the district level. As an English teacher, super passionate about literacy. I also agree it is the foundation of everything. If we are not good readers, we are going to struggle in every other arena of academics. So I am excited to put what I know about the classroom to use and learn even more about the administrative side and supporting staff and the community.
Thank you. Welcome to the district. Thank you. Our next presentation will be provided by Sherry Williams, who is the Head Start Director for our district. She's going to provide some information related to the annual report and the Head Start Governing Board training.
That's right. I've also brought a colleague, Kathy Barrett. Turn the mic on. Okay. I brought a colleague, Kathy Barrett, with me tonight. Kathy Barrett is our ERSI coordinator. ERSI is a Head Start acronym that stands for eligibility, recruitment, selection, enrollment, attendance. Kathy also manages transportation for our program and oversees the data entry of our family service workers. So we'll be starting tonight with our annual report to the public, which is a Head Start requirement. We submit, all data is collected in Head Start through a data collection tool called Child Plus, similar to Infinite Campus for K through 12. We have our own data set collecting program called Child Plus, and it gathers many, many pieces of information and puts all those pieces of information into something called the PIR, which is the program in review. So it's sort of an automatically generated report card of our program that goes out to all of the Office of Head Start. That PIR is due the end of August. And so we get hot off the press, our program in review, and I build the annual report to the public off the program in review. So, so you're seeing a new document, and I have to log back in here. All right, so as we begin our annual report to the public, just a little reminder of what our mission is. Our mission in Head Start is to provide services for income-eligible preschool children and their families. And I'm really going to paraphrase very much of this since it's quite a document, but we want to make sure that we have a strong learning community so that both our children and their families can experience success in the classroom and beyond. So it is definitely a two-generation approach where we provide family support as well. We are excited to say that we have added a classroom at Congdon this year, so Duluth Preschool is in all of the elementary schools in Duluth. Lakewood has its own privately funded preschool, but literally every elementary school in Duluth does have a preschool, so that's very exciting for us. In addition to serving kids in classrooms, we also have 17 spots that we do home visits with for families who are experiencing homelessness. So that is our state-funded program. We also have a home visitor who just is serving 12 students who's, for whatever reason, they don't feel that they can be successful in a classroom. Sometimes it's the parents not ready for that, sometimes it's the children not ready for that. So our state Head Start funding some home-based programs and our federal funding classroom spots. The total amount of funding is on the funding page with a little bit more of a description about how the money is used. I will let you sort of read through that. If you have questions, ask me at any point along the way. We also use Pathways to Early Learning Scholarships to put a second paraprofessional into all of our classrooms. I'm just kind of going slowly so you have time to sort of look at the page, but I will move along. We had a federal review last year in May of 2024. We did have, there was a noncompliance found in that federal review, but along with that noncompliance were 7 strong practices that were identified. And so I wanted to list out what those strong practices were. The noncompliance was it was a very tiny detail in a very old performance standard about oral health determination. And I will talk more about that tonight because you actually have to approve our corrective action plan on that. But there were 13 students out of 166 that when they pulled their files in the review and asked our nurse what their oral health determination was, she wasn't sure. I mean, it was a little vague detail. Every year the monitoring tool changes, and so really we were confused about it. She keeps very good track of who is up to date on their dental exams, but they needed to have something called an oral health determination, which is yes or no. She knew kind of the yes, but she didn't have the no's captured. So we had to create a little module where she could click yes or no, they are current or they are not. And that is really taking care of the noncompliance. But it was a little known performance standard that had not come up for us before. But I want to also look at the strong practices that were recognized because those were pretty special to have identified, many of them having to do with family involvement in our program. So as you read through these, removing barriers for parents to participate in our policy council, using ongoing data to innovate in the classroom based on the needs of individual or subgroups of children, offering families information or activities designed to support families' mental health and wellness, using inputs from families to improve programming, providing economic mobility support to help families with pathways out of poverty, continuously evaluating the success of recruitment strategies and adjusting those, and providing targeted support for children and families who are at risk of low attendance. So we're very proud to have those identified. Our PIR also gives us current data on who it is that we're serving. And so we do have a diverse group of children that we served last year. You can look at the mix. 40% of our students are white, so 60% of our students are not. So we know and appreciate the diversity that our program serves. We also are proud of the percentage of children who leave our program with medical homes and having had dental care in our program, having health insurance at the end of the program year. All of these are required statistics that Head Start has us report on. In terms of strong bodies. We know that children do well physically in our program. We spend a lot of time outside, and so that's reflected there. We have a nutritionist who works with us. Our collaboration with the YMCA has us bringing 4 classes to swim at the Y for a 6-week program called Safety Around Water. The Y also provides us with 286 day passes. And this year, we'll be offering, last year in our self-assessment, we had parents saying, you know, we would like to learn to swim. You know, we'd feel a lot more comfortable being around water if we could learn to swim. And so this year, the Y has agreed to provide swimming lessons to our parents free of charge and with childcare provided. So a great community partnership there. 119 kids rode the bus safely to school in many reasons. Thank you to Kathy's very persistent attention being paid to, are we following the rules? Are we wearing our vests? Are we doing all the things we need to do? So Kathy monitoring that. Duluth Preschool also supports Strong Minds for all of our kids, so we pay attention to preparing kids for kindergarten. So we can look at the broad domains of our program and how Head Start children did. We are a fully inclusive program, so last year, 27% of our children started the year receiving special ed services, and by the end of the year, we were up to 44%, because of course, we also identify children in early childhood as we identify them so they can be referred and maybe identified as requiring special ed. That's really risen. You'll notice I put the beginning of the year last year in 2022, we started with 12% and ended with 27%. Last year, we started with 27% and ended with 44%. So we continue to increase the number of students that we serve who are receiving special education services. The type of delay is broken down by percentage there, with roughly 75% of developmental delay and 25% with speech and language. But we do pay attention to how our children on IEP is doing in our program. So we're comparing them with students without IEPs. So the first graph is just showing how they do overall in the developmental domains, and the second one showing what is their rate of growth compared to students without IEPs. So really wanting to monitor the growth of students.
Member Ranks?
I have a quick question for you.
Yep.
Related to the special ed area. Why is that number so high? If you could explain that a little bit, and what is it in relation to children of color? Because it shows that 60% of the participants are kids of color. Can you talk more about that and why the number is so high? It seems like the number should be going down as opposed to up.
Right.
Please explain that. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could explain that a little bit more, in all honesty. I know that speaking with, and Laura and Jason, I don't know if you can pipe into this at all, but I know that Becky Crane, who's the early childhood special ed coordinator, has seen the numbers rising for a number of years. So she sees it in birth to 2. I mean, she sees it right away. And she has been telling us for years, the numbers just keep going up. And so something is happening that I really don't know the answer to why it is, but certainly we are seeing more and more children qualify across all race groups, I'm sure. And I can't answer that question. That is the question of the year, I think, or of this time, is why?
So if there is a way to find the answer, I think that would be very helpful.
Yes.
Great question, Member Banks. First and foremost, early childhood. It's red. Oh, the green makes it go on, thanks. Sorry about that. Yeah, I have a coaching voice. Early childhood is intended to have kids qualify for special education services more easily than K through 12 service. The developmental delay category needs to have a few small areas to qualify, whereas the criteria for older ages is much more stringent. Speech was on their slide, which is another category, and much of this is also including post-pandemic numbers. Students qualifying post-pandemic are up across the board, across the nation, across the country. But speech is an area that we've seen in Duluth Public Schools. We've recently hired 5 different speech pathologists in response to the large numbers of students qualifying in that area. But it's early childhood service. It's intended to provide a burst of service, so hopefully we can graduate students off of their IEP and become successful in their early learning years. Does that make sense?
Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate that too. We also continue to see high numbers of mental health referrals. So we saw that happen the year before this, where our numbers were significant enough that we were concerned and thought maybe this is just a rogue wave, but indeed our mental health referral numbers stayed high last year. So 2 years in a row, we've seen mental health referrals at about twice the rate they were 2 years before that. So also significant. Unknown origin. We did call together, though, a focus group last spring with Elizabeth Carver, some other people from the community. Northwoods came just to talk about, are you seeing that too? And how should we respond as a community? Because this feels like a large enough need that our community should be looking at how to collectively respond to this. And so we are continuing to meet with Northwoods to look at how we can possibly work together to do some more services that are helpful to meet children with challenging mental health concerns, not always qualifying for IEPs with mental health concerns, but sometimes.
Superintendent Magus?
Yeah, just looking at that graph on the page before, and just wondering why there were so many mental health referrals from Myers-Wilkins. Was that related to the community schools process or something else?
We do have 3, that is a large site for us, with 3 Head Start classrooms, so I can't explain why. There's higher density of early childhood programming there, but it is consistently higher there for mental health referrals.
Thank you.
Yep. We also survey our own staff to find out, well, how challenging would you identify your class as being? And we're seeing that continue to get higher. So we're seeing more behaviors in classrooms that are really difficult for staff to navigate. And so we are starting to see a teacher turnover. That has not been something that we've seen in our program before, but we had 2 teachers retire. 1 teacher transferred to another grade, though. We very rarely see that in preschool, and another just took a leave of absence after last year. So I do think we're starting to see a little movement happen in response to the kinds of behaviors that we're seeing in our classrooms, and that is concerning. That's concerning. We also do work to increase capacity of our staff to navigate those behaviors, so I want to say that we're working on that, but at the same time, we are noticing something happen.
Can I just say, and it's not us alone.
No, it is not us
just here.
alone.
It's not just this district, it's other agencies. We speak to Head Starts all over the country, all over the region, and it's happening everywhere that things are elevated, whether it's post-COVID, whether it'll die down or not.
Yeah. We also monitor all subgroups of children, so we're paying attention. Are kids learning in our classrooms? Are they about on the same spot when they leave our program? homelessness is an automatic qualifier for Head Start, so we served 27 children in our classrooms who were experiencing homelessness last year, and 34 families, 44 children in our state-funded Families in Transition program, another subgroup that we're seeing growth happen. So more families experiencing homelessness with young children from birth to 5. So that's a growing population.
Can you explain from that first page where it talks about the 17 spots reserved for those families and the 27, I don't know if I'm misreading something. On that first page with the mission, our state-funded Head Start program offers home visiting services to families, including families experiencing homelessness. This includes 17 spots reserved for children from birth to age 3. And then you served, wait, never mind. I get it.
Got it? Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. You're welcome.
Yeah, reading out loud helps.
Member Sadowski?
Okay.
I feel like I say this every year when you come to present, but
Yeah.
just thank you for the ways that you are working with our families who are experiencing homelessness. Kathy, I got to work with you long before I was on the school board, and the work that you do to work with community partners to get families who are experiencing homelessness into your program is phenomenal. So thank you very much. And, you know, hopefully as a community, we can do something to kind of turn this ship around. But yeah, there's more homelessness.
Right. We also served 19 children in our classrooms last year who were in foster care. That's also an automatic qualifier for Head Start. But this next number was the scary one. So this is why Kathy's here as the attendance person. Last year, when I came with my annual report to the public, that number was 30%, and I was concerned with the 30%. But this year, according to the PIR, 60% of Head Start students had high rates of absenteeism, and that is scary. So we know that there were big outbreaks of RSV last year. There was a big, classrooms that really almost shut down because there were so many kids were absent with RSV, and the influenza A made its way around. But Kathy's also dug deep into that and has more to add.
So it's a little more complicated than at first look. Attendance is always a scary thing. It's always a challenge, especially when working with families that have barriers. And the way we collect the data is changing to lean in. Head Start performance standards were always set at 85%. So you wanted to see an average of 85% positive attendance. In order to address attendance issues in a ever more serious, intentional way, and as we become more data informed to look at different ways of collecting data, we're looking more at absenteeism rather than positive attendance. So the data itself is a little different. The PIR only just recently started showing data like that in it, and part of that is to make sure that all Head Starts are looking at it when it shows up there. It also, 10%, the chronic absenteeism is set at 10% now. Missing one day in a week is 20%. So if a kid's off for like 2 weeks, or if they're enrolled and then they can't start or get transportation, those things skew the numbers. And so that data point alone doesn't give us a full picture. What we're doing now is looking at, and I'll say we're looking at different kind of tiered responses. We work with Attendance Works too. I know the district does. We have it embedded in Child Plus now. Like Sherry was saying, our database is Child Plus. We have Attendance Works embedded in, so we can look at different types of data points as well on a more incremental basis. We've always had a pretty tight, those of you that have been around have probably seen, heard, learned about our attendance policy, where we've always, even when it was set at 85%, once it gets to 90, we're leaning in, having advocates follow up with families. We're trying to look at more ways to have a structured response of attendance plan rather than just, can you get there? You know, we can't fix all barriers and help people get there all the time. But also, when I looked at the data, I'm like, 94 of those kids completed the year. We only lost, you know, like 11. You know, we don't want to lose any, and we fill the spots as much as we can. But we also don't want to, if someone really can't attend, then we try to provide a gracious exit and a different placement, somewhere where the family's still being served, we're still in good relationship with them to return to the school district. If there's a bump in the road or something that we feel we can support them through, then we'll do that. If we can move them to a home visiting program, then we'll do that. But we want to stay connected with the families. We want them to stay connected to the school district. So we're doing that, and we're just finding, we're going to continue to find different ways to find data points that share the stories of different individual circumstances, whether it's looking at the absence reasons and ways we can respond as a program, whether it's parsing out kids who actually aren't showing up and maybe we're keeping them too long. Maybe we need to find an alternate placement sooner, or that gracious exit. So looking at those things and how we respond. All our home visit packets this year had flyers, information points on attendance. This is our 4th week in preschool, so we're already looking at attendance, and we'll be sending something out. And Attendance Works has new resources that we look at. We use Ready Rosie for building routines, because that's the first thing we start looking at. Advocates are looking at, they're building routines in the classrooms, and we try to support that by building routines for the families, sleep routines, anything that's going to help with attendance. So, so those are the resources that we'll be wrapping around and trying to identify how to respond. But if anyone has any questions.
Thank you for sharing that. And as Chair Lofo mentioned earlier, right, one of the a piece of the acronym SAIL is attendance, right? So safety, attendance, inclusion, literacy, learning. As a district, not only does this data point out that attendance is, we have some challenges with students' attendance, but that's across the district. So that's why you have been seeing, as of late, more information coming out from Shalon, as well as Monroe, related to Attendance Matter, as well as Adele Wellens. You know, we've been trying to really push all things related to improving attendance and letting families know how they can support us with getting students to school and what supports we need. Don't forget, as a district, we've been really focused on trying to improve our transportation options for families and students. And of course, it's challenging for our little learners to get the kind of transportation they need, but across the district, attendance has been a focus for us. So just wanted you to know that. Member Sadowski?
Can you remind me when we started busing our preschoolers with the Head Start? Because that's pretty unique. So I was wondering about when it's just been within the last
I think it was
handful of years.
2017.
2017, okay. And then I just anecdotally have seen that really help families who are low, have low income, because they don't have the luxury of getting in their car and driving their kid to preschool. So have you also seen that in your
Yes.
data?
Absolutely. And the transportation also, it aligns with, with converting some classrooms from half day to full day. So then our days are aligned with the busing. So, so currently we're full in all our full days. We're still trying to fill some of the half day programs, but it makes a huge difference.
Yep, and Sherry, this last year, you added another full day, right? Based on data, based on family input from even the Head Start Policy Council, correct?
Yeah, 2 actually.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. We have a partnership with UMD. So UMD does some studies in our classroom. Of course, time in nature is a focus of our program, one of our grant goals. We know that nature-based preschools are very popular in Duluth and in Minnesota and several other states in the country, and that they are absolutely cost prohibitive for families experiencing poverty to access. And so we wanted our children to experience the same benefits. And so we do focus on spending time in nature. UMD loves to come to our classrooms to do research on that. It's very rare to have a public school preschool program with nature-based programming, and so they completed the study last year on vocabulary and how does spending time in nature seem to influence vocabulary. In all of the studies at UMD, it shows that the model that we use, which is called a blended program, so not all time outside, but some time outside, is very beneficial to our students. So UMD also created a major of early childhood environmental ed. So they also collaborate with our programs. And finally, Duluth Preschool believes that all children should have strong families. And so if we look at our parent, family, and community engagement, our Parent Policy Council is very active. We had one active father last year with 5 mothers who really, a core group of 6, they really are still going strong. We were able to send 3 of our Policy Council parents to the National Head Start Association Conference in Portland, Oregon last spring, which is always exciting when we can provide an opportunity to go places. So 96% of our families completed strength and challenge surveys, and 82 families entered into a goal-setting relationship, and that is the gold standard of Head Start. So you're not just attending things, but you're actually working towards a goal with the support of a family advocate. And so some of the goals that families identified are in the grid on this page. Then just some of our family surveys. Our families feel like they understand children better as a result of being in our program, and that we care about them. And that's a big measure of success. And the final page is all of the community places that we partner with to provide our program. So that is the annual report to the public.
Sherry, I just want to again thank you and your entire team for what you do for our littlest scholars and their families. These numbers are something to be very, very proud of. So thank you so much for what you do. And I smile every morning when I see those preschoolers get off the bus at Piedmont and their bright, giant little outfits to get off. So they're wearing them at Piedmont. Don't worry about it. And I see them lined up and everybody's there. But again, this is huge, and just those family satisfaction data to see you help us get our families to invest and trust the vision of the Duluth Public Schools is very important, especially a group of parents who may have some skepticism about public education in general. So thank you for doing that work for us. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Member Loeffler Kemp, and then Superintendent Magus.
Thank you, and just agree with everything Member Derek Eater said. I just wanted to say how impressed I am with the community partnerships you have. Really goes a long ways in so many ways in terms of getting programs done, but also just showing that we have so much community support to our schools, from our littlest learners to our oldest. And then I also wanted to just highlight, and I know I say this every time, but about the Policy Council and the fact that you're developing parent leaders. And again, I know this year we have at least 3 parents that were parent leaders through the Policy Council that are leaders with PTAs in our district. So again, the work in terms of that you do in so many different ways with the Policy Council has always been really impressive to me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So much of what I was going to say was already said, but I think all of us join in wanting to say how much we appreciate that this is the first opportunity many people have to have exposure to Duluth Public Schools, and it's such a positive, caring, holistic approach to caring for our youngest students, and just wanted to say thank you for this work.
Thank you. All right, are we ready to move on to the governing board training? Okay, I could have done this first, but I wanted to share the good news first. Okay, ready? Governing board training, this is also an annual requirement. I can do this differently in the future, like assign it to you and you just look at it on some other, however we want to do it, this is a required training. So,
Just to clarify,
Yeah.
Chair Lofold said that was something that was done. Was it sent out and assigned?
remember
So-
the year that it was
No.
the very long, very, very long training? I did get the feedback that maybe that was a little too long. So I can do a condensed version though and just assign it to you if that feels like a better use of our time. Although I don't mind coming and sharing the training with you in person either. I try to modify it a little bit each year so at least there's something new that you can learn about the program.
Chair Lofold
Yeah.
is correct, and I did talk about that with Director Williams to clarify that again, but the years all merge, right? After a certain time.
Yep.
There was one year where
Yep.
the training 2 years ago was sent out, and the board did go through the training themselves, and then there was a confirmation here. Last year, Sherry provided the information like she is providing this year, which is
Yeah.
presented here and not sending out the PowerPoint.
Yeah, yeah. So this training meets the needs of the performance standard. The training that you got that was much more in-depth and time-consuming also met, it just took so very long. And I feel like it was Amber that really went through and made sure you answered all the correct questions. And it felt like it was like
Well,
6
you had
hours
to.
later,
You
right?
you couldn't even push forward. You couldn't pretend.
So we can do it much quicker than that. So one of the things that is so exciting about Duluth Head Start is we're an original grantee, and that is pretty special to be able to say that. So Duluth Head Start has been here since 1965, with the very year that it was created as Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty. So the original Head Start program, Duluth, was an 8-week summer program at Lincoln Park Elementary. We've got photographs of it, so pretty exciting. And fun fact number 2, we're the only Head Start program in Minnesota where a school district is the grant recipient. So not true across the country, but true in Minnesota. So that makes us special too. And we don't quite fit in any box because of that.
Chair Lawful?
Oh, sorry.
Just wanted to make.
The comprehensive services of Head Start are what set it apart from other preschool programs. So we're not only concerned with the education of the children, we're concerned about their health, we're concerned about nutrition, we're concerned about their family engagement. We want to make sure that families in our program have access to things that will improve their family's well-being. That's the social services part of it. So there is a live link in this document. If you want to look at this, there's a little video about the comprehensive services from the original Head Start Act. And if we take that a step further, it has a very involved parent, family, and community engagement framework, which tells us as a program it's our responsibility to include parents in all aspects of our programming, from leadership to the classroom, and that equity and inclusiveness and cultural and linguistic responsiveness needs to go across our program, all the way across. But there are identified child outcomes and identified family outcomes. And so we also need to be striving to help improve family well-being and all of the other 7 items in the family outcomes. But we target those as potential places to set goals with families, to take steps towards achieving those. The Head Start Management Wheel, as you can see, is built around quality child and family outcomes in the very center. And then the comprehensive services surround that. And then the spokes are all of the departments, which in our case are departments in the Duluth Public Schools that go around that and support that. And the very outside of the circle is you, the leadership in our governing board. So there you go. That's the Head Start Management Wheel. So whenever we have training, they'll ask us, they'll go around the spokes in the wheel, have you considered this spoke? Have you considered this spoke? So our training is built around this Head Start Management Wheel. It's very good training. The training we get from the Office of Head Start, it's very top-notch training. The performance standards are a guide that tell us what things must be in place in our program, and they are comprehensive. So they have just been revised this year, so there's a bunch of new performance standards that we are working to figure out how we'll adapt those into our programming, but we know that it's the three wheels. We want to make sure that we've got early childhood development and health there, our family and community partnerships, and then our program design and management. That's all those things together what make Head Start a great program. This is the grant cycle of Head Start, and we are in the final year of our current grant cycle, which is a big deal. That means this year I have to conduct a full community needs assessment so that I can say, these are the needs that we're seeing in our community that will affect people experiencing poverty, and this is what we want to target to try to make a difference. And so that will involve lots of meetings with community partners to try to figure out, well, what are the needs in our community? And also lots of meetings with parents to help us figure out what do we want to target? Where can we make a difference? And so it's going to be a big year for parent involvement. Currently, our grant goals are high-quality inclusive classrooms, walking the talk of equity, and increasing resilience by supporting health and wellness for all. So, and all of those have got things that we've put in place to put some legs under those goals. But as far as leadership and governance, the governing body is the legal and fiscal. You hold the legal and fiscal responsibilities, including the safeguarding of the federal funds. The Policy Council helps set the program direction, and our management staff oversees the day-to-day operations, but that's how leadership and strategic direction work in a Head Start program. And so to really get down into the last several slides, sort of contrast what's different about the governing board compared to our Policy Council. So you're the governing board. You're obviously elected, and so you have legal and fiscal responsibility for the program. You are adopting practices that assure that you are informed enough to be responsible for ensuring compliance with federal laws. And at the last page of this document really has all those original documents for you to look into, but of course, Simone really knows our program well, and we've gone through many, many audits, and things have been fine in all of the audits. So Simone is a big part of that. But the governing body also kind of oversees the Policy Council. So when you've got a representative sitting on the Policy Council, that information can be brought back and forth between the Policy Council and the governing board. So we've got a liaison that works between the two programs. So that's important.
And as part of that as well, Sherry, the fact that the board chair also gets emails from
Yep.
the department and the grantees, and so board chairs are kept up to what's happening in the legal and financial area as well. I read them. I sometimes will ask Sherry, or email Sherry and say, okay,
Are we good?
This is good. We're good.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're good.
Good. So, and then the last page is live links to the big three, the big heavy-duty regulations that that we follow. So the Head Start Performance Standards, the Head Start Act, and the Uniform Administrative Requirements are all the big documents that are the laws that we have to follow behind in a Head Start program. So that's your training. Are you good? Any questions?
I love this training.
Chair Lawful?
I'm so glad we have it.
Chair Lawful?
And then the final thing that I have for you today is something that will require board approval. It's our corrective action plan for our noncompliance. So it's the final document in my, there we go. One of the beautiful things about Head Start is when you have a noncompliance or a deficiency, somebody comes to help you. So they'll sit with you, they fly in, they sit with you, they walk through all of the possible solutions. I mean, it really is a top-notch system. So we've worked with someone to help us figure out what this was, and then she has worked with us. We've developed a module that will let us know if someone is in process for getting an up-to-date on their dental exam, or if they've gotten a dental exam, they're good, and if they still need to have that. That's what we needed. We needed to be yes or no, and evidence of that. And so we didn't really have that in place. So we've created a module in Child Plus that will take care of that. So I assure you, this problem is solved. But I do need you to approve the corrective action plan, so.
Is there some help when we identify a family that needs support in getting this oral exam done? And that's another reason to have the no box, is so that there's opportunities for your staff to work with them to get it?
That's exactly right. I mean, that's exactly. They want us to monitor all of the steps that we've taken to, and of course, we bring children's dental services to the schools. So children get dental exams at school, but every once in a while somebody will be absent, or, a family will say, no, I don't want to do that. So we have to document what we've done in order to get them up to date on their oral health exams. And so it really kind of creates a flagging system almost of like, oh yeah, these guys aren't there yet. Let's continue to provide education on why this is important, and let's try it again. Let's meet them at the dental office. I mean, our family advocates will do that for families. They'll not only set up an appointment, but they'll be your buddy and meet you at the park. We'll meet you in the waiting room to sit with you while you wait for your exam. So we've got lots of great opportunities to help people get to the next step. That's part of family advocacy, so.
Member Banks?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, there's a children's dental clinic that's going to be opening downtown. Are you looking at partnering with them in the future?
I think that's the very one we do partner with. Yeah, so they come into schools right now, and now they'll have their own dental office here in Duluth as well, which is really beautiful. Because, we want people to continue receiving dental care beyond their school years. Yeah, that's great news that they're opening an office in Duluth.
Thank you.
All righty, that's all I got.
So you will see this item on the October board agenda as a consent item for approval. Next up, we have a verbal update related to the budget. Executive Director Zunich is here to provide a verbal update.
And while she's coming up, I basically, we talked about it, and we're kind of sharing an update on where we're at with budget. Nothing incredibly formal, just that we have continued our processes for input, that we met with each of our bargaining units all together, and then they've been sharing information on how they feel that we should consider budget reduction. Largely, it's intended to be within their own bargaining unit, but we do sometimes get feedback on other areas that they feel that we should be reducing in, and so really that's part of our process. And by October 7th, we're hoping to have all of those meetings, either meetings with the bargaining unit leads if they choose to meet in person with us to give us their input. Otherwise, we've been receiving email. And then we're also meeting with our quality leadership meeting, or the labor management process, to discuss with our Duluth Federation of Teachers. With that being our largest bargaining unit with almost 700 employees, we wanted to make sure that there was opportunity there. And it sounds like people are having fun with letters training. Simone,
Thank you. I think John shared exactly what's been happening so far. We're waiting on, as he said, either an email update from the bargaining units as to their suggestions and ideas, or they can request a one-on-one meeting with us. And the next step then is we'll be setting up site meetings for John and I to be going out to all the sites and meeting with all the staff. So that's next steps for us.
we also, between the last time we met and now, Simone and I went and met with the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, and so there was a meeting of about 60 people, probably 25, 30 school districts represented with their superintendents and CFOs and other top business positions. And nearly every district that's part of the AMSD is going through very similar budget reductions. And so part of it is the financial things that we were dealing with prior to the pandemic, but the change from ESSER funding has had significant impact, as well as some of the unfunded mandates. And I've even seen recently, and you probably saw in the MSBA, the e-clips that they send out, that there's significant movements going on amongst the various teachers throughout the state too, wanting to lobby and protest, trying to get additional funding for the school districts, partly because they're all seeing reductions, and quite often, as we know, reductions sometimes have impact on the staffing as well as our ability to serve students. So we're really, as are many districts, trying to take this step by step, and we each month we have a placeholder on the agenda with the committee of the whole for the coming months, so that we can provide a very brief update on where we are with budget, but we also plan on deeper opportunities, as well as the small group budget meetings that we've held.
Member Meixel?
I missed something that you said when you, are you having a separate or different meeting with the DFT? I just missed that.
Yes.
Can
So-
you repeat what you said about that?
Sure. So we have, we've met with them in the larger group meeting with all the bargaining units, but really this is intended for our, through the labor management process, we have our quality steering committee, which is kind of the head committee of the labor management process. And then we have a variety of subcommittees, which are called quality leadership teams. And they focus on a variety of things. You know, we have a high school quality leadership team. We have a middle school, an elementary, early childhood, special ed. We have one on evaluation. We have one on other things. But there's also a committee that they've had previously that focuses on budget. So we've reenacted that group. And actually, it's been interesting conversation. I think that as President Fisher pointed out, that really the past 4 years have been some of the only times in their history that they haven't had budget meetings where they're considering what reductions need to be made. And so there's this kind of dichotomy between the people who have been here for a long time and have been used to budget cut year after year, and then there are people who are new to the system who haven't experienced any of this, who are feeling a lot of angst, and quite often those are also people who have less seniority. And so making sure that we're working together, we're planning the meetings together, and we're having those conversations is important. And we would be more than willing to have additional conversations with other bargaining units should they choose to do so. We're also scheduling individual site meetings. So we're meeting with each of our school sites so that we can share on the budget and give an overview of where we're at, so that then it's a face-to-face conversation. I think if you're sharing about budget from a distance, it doesn't have the same impact. I want to make sure that we're there to answer questions, that we're there to show what we've done thus far for reduction. I know that, just as an example, looking at the district office, we've made quite a few reductions already this year. And we talked about how we are, basically, we are doing the budget reductions in 2 phases. And quite a few other, not quite a few, but several other districts in the AMSD were doing a similar phased approach where they used some of their fund balance, as we did, to step down from the spending. And then, so using that time, we're reducing by, as we know, about 2.7 or $2.6 million this year, and then about $5 million next year. Thus far, we've reduced by about $1 million this year. So we've made about $1 million of the $1.6 million reductions we need to this year, and we feel that we're on track, given that it's early in the year yet, as we continue to identify things. And Executive Director Zunich and I were meeting today, and really every single decision we make now, we are looking at it through a lens of significant fiscal responsibility and trying to make sure that we always have asked ourselves, do we need this? But now it kind of goes through a much deeper process of, do we really need this? Is there any way we can offset? Is there anything we can do to make a reduction given the situation? So that's where we've been. I think I went way further than you intended with your question, though.
Member Banks?
So I'm wondering, will our students be able to provide some conversation related to the budget, or is that not a possibility? So we hear from our students
I think
as the direct
Yeah.
consumer. That's what I'm
I think
thinking.
it could be a consideration. We could potentially have conversation with our student government groups, particularly at the high school level. I think that the high school students have, just as far as like where they're at as far as maturity and developmental ability, I think that they would probably have more insight into where we might consider reduction. So that would
We
be
also have
something
our
we
2
consider.
school board reps, too.
Yeah,
We
I
also,
think that would,
yeah.
that's helpful as representation of our students.
Yeah.
But I think we could consider that as well.
That's what I meant with regard to our student reps. If we give them an opportunity to weigh in,
I think that'd be great.
I think that would be important. I think they would feel as though they're a part of that process.
Yes.
I think our school board reps are also a part of the government classes, at least they're assigned to, and I would caution us to allow that to be their process and not put them on the spot to come to a public meeting for the first time and weigh in. I think that in the guidance that we've all operated under in the past with our student school board reps is they certainly have a voice at the table, but we're hoping that they are connecting with their principals and their students that they are working with to share that type of input. And they, and if as a board chair, I would just caution us to be aware that I think the place for their voice would be within their pyramid and at an opportunity right there in their schools with that pyramid group to speak to the leaders, and not so much at a school board meeting. I don't know, that would be, I certainly don't hold the law on it. I'm just one voice here at the table, but.
I just want to make sure that that voice is elevated with regard to this, wherever that is. That doesn't matter to me. It could be at the schools. I have no issue with that, but I just want to make sure we hear from them as well, because they are directly impacted by the decisions we make. So that's just my opinion.
I think it would be good for us to meet with our school board reps, and first, maybe a couple of opportunities where we could discuss with them what we're looking for, and then they could go back to a broader student group, and then we would be willing to meet with them independently to take that input too. I mean, most stakeholder groups are not giving input directly here at the board table, and so I think doing it as part of the process would be really helpful, and I really appreciate that suggestion. I think we always try and look at things through the lens, especially with this, of what is the impact on students, and students are our customers and our consumers, and we want to make sure that we take their input.
Chair Lawful? I was anticipating, I saw your hand going. It was going. Anything else related to budget? Well, thank you. Chair Lawful, that was our last presentation for the COW for today.
Thank you all, and even though we don't officially adjourn, we officially adjourn, and we'll just give the live stream a chance to finish up. But thank you for all of the presentations. Thanks for those of us that stayed to hear these, and it was a great night of good information, so thank you.